little session here. We've been through my father and my mother, and I'll probably inject during different times some different things about them. And naturally I know much more about my own life, so I'm going to start from the first time I can remember anything, and go on from there. And the first thing I can remember is Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th, 1941. We lived in 711 East Street, and I wasn't much, I guess I must have been like, well, up to my dad's waist at that time, or a little less, and I guess I could talk because I can remember asking my dad things. I can remember asking my dad, where was Pearl Harbor? We'd been listening to the radio. At that time our house had, we didn't have a full carpet on the floor. Full carpets weren't, everybody didn't have them at that time. So our carpet, as a matter of fact, we didn't even have the carpet that ran around the whole floor and stopped about a foot out. We had throw rugs on the floor. So most of the floor was wood floor and had a few throw rugs around. And my mom and dad were dressed for church. I guess they always went to church. We always went to church and Sunday school on Sunday morning. And this was like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. We were listening to Paul Whiteman, I think, or some radio show, and it had this whistler on it. And this guy used to whistle all kind of different tunes, and he was one of the featured people on this show. So, so we were listening to this, and it was a big old brown radio. It was about 20 inches high and about 15 inches wide and 15 inches deep out of brown wood, and came with a top, had a top on it kind of like this, you know. And so we were listening, and all of a sudden they come in, and this is some kind of emergency news or something, and it's there. The Japanese have bombed the Pearl Harbor, the Navy ships in Pearl Harbor, and almost all the Navy ships were sunk, and there was going to be an ad address by the president in a few minutes, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyhow, I remember going up to my dad, and I could pull his pant leg like this, you know. I pulled his pant leg, and I said, "Daddy, where's Pearl Harbor?" And he said, "It's way over in the Pacific. It's an island way over in the Pacific." I said, "What's over there?" He said, "All the Navy ships." So I asked him, I said, "Well, you're going to have to go in the Army?" He said, "Well, I hope not." And at that time he worked, I guess, at the steel mill. I don't know if he worked at the shipyard yet, but I think he worked at the steel mill at that time. And I was like a year and a half or something, not even a year and a half, I think. Let's see, 40, yeah, I guess I was almost 2 years old. Or maybe more than 2 years old, I don't know. Anyhow, that was the first remembrance I have of anything. I don't know what the next ones were. I remember going down the street to Fairholme School. We went to the Fairholme School. That was only about 4 or 5 blocks away, I think. And my sister and I both used to go down there, and you went there until the 6th grade. And then when you went in the 7th grade, you went to Longfellow School. That was much farther away. That was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. They called that a junior high school. They don't have many of them here around here anymore. My mother was always involved in the church, some kind of church thing, and we belonged to the Delaware Methodist Church, which was right around the corner up Delaware Avenue, and I don't know, I guess it was 2 blocks up, the corner of Delaware and East Erie. And that's where I told you my grandfather had a pew up there with his name on it. And we always went up there. We had Sunday school, etc. And he had a lot of church functions. We went to picnic every year out at this place these people had. They had a great big, I don't think they owned this thing or whatever it was. Anyhow, they had a lot of area out there. It's like an Avon Lake or Sheffield Lake. And we go to several different functions during the year. And in the afternoon after school, well, up until the time of school, I can't remember. I can remember they tell me about the story about when I fell off the porch roof. And there's some pictures in it. I had this big old floppy, was a sailor's watch cap was what it was. Instead of folding it over and wearing it down on my head, I used to leave it long, and they called it looked like Dopey's hat. If you ever saw Dopey picture of Dopey of the Seven Dwarfs, why, that was the kind of hat I wore. It was a long, and I was walking up and down on the rail in front of the house, and apparently my mom couldn't keep me down from there because nobody would let it. I was 3 years old, I understand, at the time. And I'm yelling, baseball, 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 and all of a sudden my mom didn't hear me, and she went out and I wasn't there, and she looked, and there I was laying down in a flower bed. Fell down there and knocked myself out, I guess. And then another time when I was older, well, I'll tell them stories in another video. Well, another